Hello, warriors. My name is B, and this is the U Movement. Kundalini has taken up residence in the heart chakra as of late. That feels like a hot burning as it burns through everything that's not love, really. And so the theme of love has been front and center. And it's been a very uncomfortable process as more of me dies and accepting what is. And I first and foremost want to say thank you to a couple of people that have reached out and commented that they understood what it's like to love forever, because it certainly makes me feel less like a freak. And I'm still trying to make sense of it because, I don't know if this is a human condition underneath all of the crap, and that all humans are like this. That's not been my experience in life, certainly, or because I'm autistic, or because I'm a starseed, although I do kind of think those two things are one and the same. But my whole life, I have struggled with love. I've really, really struggled with it because I've loved people routinely that hurt me. And being hurt didn't feel like love, but that didn't stop me from loving them. And that was very problematic, like really problematic, because you stay in abusive situations when you can't stop loving people. And all the way along my awakening path, there has been tremendous amount of loss as I have learned how to walk away, because I was never good at that. Instead, I would just stay in situations, friendships, job placements, relationships, family, and tolerate, always hoping that things would be different than what they were. Maybe if I just loved a little bit harder, that things would be different than what they were. And so on my awakening path, it's been almost a necessary phase to sit in emotions like anger, resentment, and even hatred has had value. It was important part. But I don't want to hold on to those forever, as necessary as they were to help me leave abusive situations. But despite those energies as protective forces, the love didn't actually stop for any of the people that I have ever loved. Um, I've been reviewing in my mind for the last 24 hours in this grieving process that I apparently am in, all the people, and I'm talking, it's a lot of people. Like I've moved around a lot. So I've known a lot of people. I've not lived in a bubble. I've moved, geez, I can't even count how many different cities I've lived in, and continents for that matter. Um, So I've met a lot of people in my life, and I've loved a lot of people in my life. I'm not just talking about romantic love. The friends that I've met over the years, like I loved them, and I still do, even though they're not in my life. It would be for me, and as I said, I don't know, maybe this is an autistic thing or something, but you'd have a friendship going with somebody, and I would almost like just be have them on a pedestal. Like I adore people. I absolutely adore people. And then something would happen, and I would get hurt. Like I would get really, really hurt. Um, And so I learned over time to step back, and I never understood why um, a lot of those relationships like disintegrated, because whatever people were saying to me wasn't in alignment with the energies that I was feeling. And then, the relationship would be gone. And I never let myself grieve them, because grief in itself seemed like something I wasn't allowed to do. So I would instead like place bricks around my heart of, I'm fine, everything's fine. I'm going to just get over it. I'm going to move on. I'm not bothered. When underneath, I was devastated. I was devastated. I didn't understand why why people were mean. Um, I also didn't understand why people wouldn't apologize for hurting my feelings. And I didn't understand why, or how other people could just, like walk away, and I just didn't understand. I really didn't understand. So I became practiced at accepting things I shouldn't have accepted because I didn't want to lose people. And in that grasping, I put myself in harm's way. Uh, the truth is, I wouldn't have stayed in my marriage as long as I did if it wasn't for the fact that I loved him. You know, people say, well, why do you stay? Why do you stay in abusive relationships? Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. You stay because you love them. You love them. I still love him, even though I don't want anything to do with him because it's not safe. And I've learned it's not safe. You have to walk away from unsafe situations, and safety is not just your physical safety, but it means your emotional safety and your psychological safety, your mind safety. And, you know, there was a lot of psychological warfare that was at play in my marriage that I wasn't aware of, right? You just, like, I'm gullible. I know that I've been very gullible through the years. So I was, used to empty promises because I thought that they were, I thought they were genuine apologies, and I thought they were genuine promises. And I wanted it to be better than it was. Because like when he was nice, and the same can be said for my mother, when they were nice, actually, I'm wondering if the same can be said for my mother. No, there was moments. There were moments. And those little moments give you hope. That it could be better. That you can be seen and heard and understood and cared about the way you try really hard to see and hear and care about them. Like I thought my ex-husband was my person. I didn't know that it was all lies and manipulations, or that he was cheating on me, or that he was consciously abusing me with these narcissistic tactics. I couldn't see them. I really couldn't see them. There was so much chaos and crisis and confusion that I couldn't see. I couldn't see that he was purposefully being cruel. I couldn't see it. And I couldn't see what the whole twin flame dynamic was in that moment. I could just feel what I felt, you know? And while I completely understand that like everything happened for a reason, and if this didn't happen, then that wouldn't have happened, and that wouldn't have happened if this didn't happen, and everything that's happened has to get me somewhere safe on my own, where nobody can hurt me anymore. But all of that said, the love that I feel for all people that I have ever loved is still there. It's still there. I needed to have anger. I needed to have resentment. I needed to have hatred to build a wall so that I could escape from all of the scenarios that were hurting me. I'm feeling really, really like autistic right now. I don't know if that's a feeling, but there's been so many times in my life that I've been really like accomplishing things and like feeling smart and feeling like I've got it figured out, and this isn't one of those times. This is one of those times where I'm so utterly wrecked. There's so much grief in my heart that Kundalini is pushing out. Not just like even just my awakening. The amount of people I've lost is just so insane. And I look at each of them as like a test or a lesson. So somebody would come in and I would have great amount of love for them, and then they would do something so horrific, like so shocking, that Spirit was like, are you going to just stand there and take it, or are you going to learn the lesson that you need to walk away? Like I had tolerated 48 years with my mother, 47 actually, 46 because I was adopted. So 46 years of my mother's abuse. And then the day came where she said to me, where I am getting a divorce was the stupidest thing I could have ever done in my entire life, because no one will ever love me again because I am unlovable, incapable. And then I hung up the phone. And that was pretty much one of the last times I ever spoke to her, because from that point forth, I was scared of her. I moved from being, my fear of her hurting me what superseded my love for her. I went into severe PTSD. And 10 months later, she was dead. My fear of her hurting me was bigger than the love. Escaping out of my marriage, and I call it escaping because that's what it was, despite the fact that I loved him, despite the fact that I saw the potential he had to be a really good human. Ultimately, it took finding out the truth and being truth bombed to such an extent that I had a complete breakdown. And then I was terrified of him. I still am. I still am terrified of him. Because you don't know what somebody is capable of if they're capable of that, of everything that he admitted to and confessed to. But still, the cognitive dissonance that I was in, I still my first reaction was forgiveness, and my first reaction was redemption. Like I want to resolve this, and I wanted to have hope. I wanted to believe. The phase afterwards that he was in the hoovering, trying to suck back the relationship. He actually said, I didn't love you before, but I love you now, and I really, really want to try to make this work. And I was very deluded into thinking just maybe there was a sliver of a chance that was possible. Because this love that I have is always too forgiving. And then I caught him in another lie. And I realized, oh, it wasn't actually just a lie, because I was like watching very intensely everything, and I had studied all of Dr. Ramani's videos. And so I was seeing signs. I was watching for signs, and I was seeing signs of some of the tricks, the trickery. One day he dropped another crisis on my lap, and I was like, I can't deal with your crisis. I'm going through my own awakening right now. And so my mind was like, oh wait, this is a test. This is a test to see if I'm gonna just jump in to try to help him again. And then almost right after that, I said to him, he was being very kind for a period of time. And I said to him, I can almost see that there could be a chance that maybe, just maybe, we could figure this out. And almost immediately the energy shifted. And he was like, oh, I can put less effort in now. And then like days after that was a lie. And so I went no contact because I had to save myself. I had to get safe. It wasn't safe. It wasn't safe. But the love didn't stop. And the withdrawal that I went through, the grief that I went through because I had thought he was my person for so long, was like coming off of heroin. Not that I've ever come off of heroin, but it's been just over 2 years now, and I'm still grieving that. I'm still processing through that, and I'm beyond grateful, because I wouldn't have been able to escape without the twin thing. I wouldn't. And it may not make sense, but it makes sense to me that it was like a lifeline. Not because they were saying anything or doing anything, like there was no offers. There was never anything like that, but it was just energetically or spiritually, it had activated in me the warrior within, that despite loving people, I could be brave enough to walk away. And then there was all the friends that came in and would test me with scenarios that were obvious boundary violations or obvious betrayals or like really obvious hurtful things. And I would try to say, like, this is what you did that really, really hurt me. Like, try to communicate. But that wasn't the lesson. The lesson was learn to walk away, because there was no repair, right? There needs to be, when there is like a conflict, communication, like acknowledgement and repair. So yesterday I had a friend that, and so this is like new experiencing. I had a friend that reached out and apologized to me because she had said something really quite hurtful. And I had just, at this point, I'm kind of resigned to like just assume that like everything is a lesson now. And so when she said that hurtful thing, I was like, well, I'm going to still be me. I'm not going to morph myself because you're judging me. And she came in and she was like, I'm really sorry for what I said. And I said, well, I really appreciate that. Because I like you a lot. You know, my love hadn't changed just because she said something hurtful. I still loved her, and I probably, and you know, I think she's a remarkable woman. So there was repair, right? There was communication, there was acknowledgement, and then there was repair. I've had empty apologies in my day, and this wasn't empty. It was acknowledging, you know? So maybe that's a sign that things are going to be different for me in the future. I don't really, to be honest with you, know why God wanted me to experience everything that I've experienced in my life thus far. Perhaps it was to learn the lesson that love isn't enough, or love is non-grasping. You can love, but you can ultimately like let go and still love at a distance where you're safe and protected. I really thought when I like kind of came out saying that, you know, I still love these people, I still love my twin, I still love that more people would ridicule me. And there have been a couple comments, right? Like, I was shocked to get people say, oh my God, I understand. You know, I'm the same. Once you love, that's it. It's been very problematic for me my whole life to love in such a way that you don't know how to leave. You don't know how to protect yourself. At the beginning of my awakening, you know, I had become so closed off from the world because I didn't trust people. And ultimately, I had to learn how to trust myself. And I'm still learning how to trust God. And with that, new people have come in, Soul Tribe has come in that has been different, it's different. They do care when they hurt you. They apologize when they hurt you. And they rectify. They make effort. Like, I feel like a 4-year-old right now. Like, I really do. I feel like a 4-year-old, totally confused by the world. There's a lot more grief. It takes courage to be open-hearted and to love. And it takes strength to walk away from those that you do love. And just because you walk away, it doesn't mean that you stop loving them. It just means you aren't in each other's space anymore. So I've just been like sending love out to all the people that hurt me for the last 24 hours. It's not like I'm calling them up and going, yo, hey. But despite the abandonments or the betrayals or the abuses, I still love them. I, a long time ago, learned on this journey that we are going through a transformational process to bring us into unconditional love. That's the whole point of the journey, is to open us up to a new way of loving that is non-grasping, non-demanding, no obligations, no expectations. And scary and challenging, as all the constructs of the mind that used to keep you safe are torn away so that you can just be living. You don't need those constructs. You do need physical autonomy. It may mean that you need, to have certain individuals blocked if they're saying hurtful, horrible things. You don't need to tolerate that. So we're put in this isolation tank so that we can again love freely in a safe container without any neediness of really anything. All the people that I love, they don't have to love me back. The people that I love, they don't have to talk to me. They don't have to even like me. My love is not dependent upon those things. I think of them all with fondness, and I have beautiful memories. The heart chakra has been one of the most challenging on my awakening. To fully open. And is it fully open now? I don't know. Am I going to go through more ego death? I don't know. it's scary because you think what is underneath is somehow like wrong or weird or freakish. And we don't want to expose that. But I don't want to put my love in the shadow. I want to be able to love freely and with reckless abandon and vastness. I want to spread my love far and wide without fear of ridicule or fear of being told to like move on or fear of being said, like some diagnostic, oh, this is limerence or this is obsessive romanticism. It's not any of those things. I just fucking love people. Like, since when is love a disorder? Is love really a disorder? I don't know. I feel like the world is kind of missing and needs a whole lot more love. There seems to be quite a severe absence of it. So if it makes me a freak, that's what they used to call me. Old programs. Oh, I can remember the amount of times what are you, a freak? You're some kind of freak. Well, if I'm a freak because I just love people willy-nilly, like, is it really wrong of me to like just love somebody? I'm not asking them to I'm not asking anything from that person. Can I not just send people love? Is that wrong? I I don't know. I don't feel like it's wrong. It feels scary and foreign and like I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing, but like at the same time it doesn't. It feels like it's exactly what the world needs is just more love. I want them to be happy and have a good life. And I'll grieve that they don't want the same for me. I'll grieve the losses. That's my job. My job isn't to demand love back. It hurts when you don't get it, and so I shall grieve. I shall allow myself to grieve, and I guess I don't really care if people think I'm grieving too long or too much, or if I'm too big or too small or too sensitive or too this or too that. I can't live my life within those frameworks. I can't fit inside that box. My whole life I wanted to be normal. Whatever that is. Normal looks pretty sick and dysfunctional to me. So I don't think I really want that anymore. I just kind of want to be allowed to be me. Love freely. Part 2. Some of the confusion has dissipated because I had the privilege of joining Ree on her meditation, Sunday meditation. If you want to join Ree's Sunday meditation group at 11 a.m., head on over to Enlightened Awakening Embodiment. Kundalini Awakening Embodiment. I don't know though. I get all dyslexic with that heading. It's such long words. But yes, Kundalini Awakening Embodiment with Ree. She is a monthly membership, and you can join her group. Highly recommend it. So this morning, after my early morning rise and then many hours in meditation, I went and joined her meditation group where she does guided meditations and then discussion afterwards. And this question that is still like percolating through my consciousness about true unconditional love. Can we truly love unconditionally? I asked ChatGPT out of curiosity. It's very good for research purposes, although I try to minimize how much time I'm on this thing. But for research, to pull research, it's very useful. So I said, please tell me what Buddha and other spiritual teachers say about loving without any attachment. How does one go through life with a fully open heart, accepting nothing in return? And so the response was, many spiritual traditions speak about loving fully without attachment, but they often mean something more nuanced than giving love and expecting nothing at all. They're pointing towards a kind of love that is free rather than grasping. And then he goes on to mention a few spiritual teachers, starting with Buddha. The key issue is attachment, clinging. And, throughout my awakening process, it has been letting go of one attachment after another attachment after another attachment. And the most challenging of all attachments was the attachment to people. I call it my people addiction because I had this love and I hadn't learned the lesson of leaving. And when you don't learn the lesson of leaving, you remained attached in dysfunctional, abusive, challenging situations. So my soul was like, right, you come down to earth and you're going to learn what it is to love without attachment through 1,000,001 attachments. And it doesn't help when the constructs that are relationship are constantly telling you what is normal and constantly telling you that everything needs to be reciprocal in nature and that people need to show up for you in certain ways. Otherwise, your love then becomes conditional. We use the term conditional love, unconditional love all the time. But the fact of the matter is I've never experienced unconditional love in my life. Far from it. I've not even been able to do unconditional love because, to a certain extent, we have conditions on everyone. We even have conditions on our children, Now, I was very blessed with my son, was not, he didn't act out and didn't have a whole bunch of issues, but, there was still like expectations that he's going to behave in certain ways, certain conditions that are deemed acceptable behaviors. And I can remember one time he got himself into a little bit of mischief as a teenager and stayed out very late. And I had always given him a lot of freedom and a lot of do your own thing. And, I'm not going to lock you in place. And when he stayed out all night, pulled an all-nighter when he was about 16, all of a sudden my willingness to be so freely non-restrictive became much more restrictive. And I put one of those life things on his phone so I could track where he was. I took it off when he was 18 because he technically, so for 2 years he had a tracker on him because that night, threatened my sense of safety, my sense of comfort. And, granted, he's a child, so I'm still responsible for him. There is still an attachment there. As an adult, I was like, okay, you're free to come and go as you please now. I don't get to know that information. That falls not in the realm of my thing. But I'm going off on a tangent because we are attachments, right? And there's a whole attachment theory that, psychology has introduced to the world with anxious attachment and avoidant attachment and, healthy attachment and this attachment. But I guess what they're missing, because it's like, four degrees of attachment, is what about no attachment? What about like the healthiest attachment being no attachment at all? That's not presented in our social construct of relationship, that we can love without any attachment, And so Buddha says here, Buddha didn't say not to love. He taught to love without trying to possess or control. In Buddhism, this kind of love is called metta, a loving kindness. The idea is love others deeply. Well, check, I've got that one covered. Wish them well, but do not cling to them as the source of your happiness. Oh, well, that one's been challenging because I always felt like, well, if they could only treat me like this, then I'd be happy. If they could only show up like this, then I'd be happy. If they could only be here, text me back, do this, do that, then I'd be happy. And Spirit has basically put me through an obstacle course of detachment for the purposes of sitting with self and understanding that there is actually no individual at all outside of myself that can provide me with happiness. I've been completely and utterly isolated for the sole purpose of living life without any attachments. And what is coming to the surface now is the realization that I still love regardless of no attachment. So I still have the capacity. This is what this journey is bringing us into the capacity to unconditionally love others without making any demands on them whatsoever. And, that doesn't work in the world of relationship, but that works in the world of spirituality, that works in the world of being able to process through life or go through life free flowing, letting some come and some go, flow in and flow out without having that disrupt your own equilibrium. Now, for me, I was raised with attachment deficits because of adoption and because of not ever having, a person to attach to in a healthy way, to model to me healthy attachment as a young person. That meant I went through life replaying the needs of the inner child long after I had outgrown the inner child. I had grown into an adult, but I'm still walking around with a child's need to hold on to things. And so my lessons as somebody who's been an anxiously attached person has been to let go and leave. Learn the lesson of let go and leave. And so crazy scenarios made it impossible to stay attached. And I had to let go and leave. And in that letting go and leaving, there has been a huge amount of grief because it didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have anxiously attached people that don't want to attach, that are like, please don't attach to me because it doesn't make me feel safe. And so they need to learn the opposite lesson, which is stay. They need to learn. That's not me, but so spirit may have put them in scenarios in their own spiritual evolution where they doubled down into the relationship, and quite possibly that's what my twin is doing. Is he's doubled down into his relationship because he wants to stay, and so I'm at the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Because we mirror souls are learning. A soul doesn't want to come down and learn the same lesson on both sides. What would be the point of that? That's inefficient. So it's much better to learn the opposing lessons. That way you're getting twice as much information. So from my side of it, our soul is learning, what it is to learn finally to let go, unattach, and leave. And the healthiness that is involved in that, because in leaving, I learned that nobody else is responsible for my own happiness. More to the point, nobody else is responsible for my own safety. I am responsible for my safety. And on the opposite end, any avoidance are learning the lesson to stay, what it is to really stay in something and commit into something, because maybe they've been challenged with that. I don't know. I can't speak on that side. I'm just saying that's the opposite energy of what I am, right? So this Buddhist teaching is talking about, love says, may you be happy. I want everyone I've ever loved and still love in my life to be happy, because them finding their own spiritual path into happiness only helps the collective as a whole. So I want them to be happy. But attachment says, you must make me happy. And so what I've been put through the paces on learning all these ways to detach myself, is that the grief that I experience is not the loss of love, it's the loss of attachment, is what I'm actually grieving. And now that's a painful process when you become isolated and alone and sitting in the lonely and, processing through your own spiritual maturation, which means the needs of the inner child's attachment. Like a child needs to attach for survival. A child needs to have somebody feed them, hold them, clothe them, house them. A child needs that. But because I didn't have anyone at all to attach to, and I described in my video earlier today, was, I thought that my ex was my person, my person. But even in saying that, that's saying mine. That's an attachment that's saying you belong to me. You'll take care of my needs. So of course it was dysfunctional, because the lesson is to love. And when you get the signals that somebody is hurting you, the next lesson is to leave. You have to learn that part of the lesson. You can't just learn the part of the lesson that is love unconditionally without learning the part of the lesson, which is you need to make yourself safe and protect yourself and move away from situations that are unhealthy. And so this is kind of combining spirituality and psychology into one lesson of what it is to truly love freely, to have an open heart center. Says I can show up anywhere and be with anyone and give my love, and and not attach, not reach out and expect anything in return. If something's given in return, that's fabulous and it feels wonderful. But if it's not going to upset me. It's not going to like disrupt my own equilibrium. So I'm going to go on here because it says under the Buddhist teachings, the open heart still loves, but does not demand permanence, control, or repayment. How many people can do that? I think this spiritual awakening is forcing us to learn how to love without demanding any form of permanence, control, of repayment. I think that's what this twin journey is about loving somebody that is not yours. They are not your person. They are their own person. That nothing in life is permanent. So that doesn't mean you get to like staple them into your room and, you know, force them to stay in contact with you. You cannot control it. And there is no repayment. There's not this exchange of energy that in our culture, we're kind of like, well, I need this and I need that, or I'm not giving this, you know, tit for tat kind of energy. And it says, Spirit, God says, no, I want you to love without any of that. I want you to love without any of that. And I'm going to make it impossible for you to delude yourself, distract yourself, deny yourself the fact that there is a love that exists there. It is not wrong to love. It is wrong to attach. It is unhealthy to attach. And so this technology, this twin flame journey technology is opening ourselves. Well, it is the catalyst for a profound spiritual awakening that purges through the Kundalini once released, purges through every single one of your chakras to let go of fears, illusions, delusions, distractions, like everything, all the constructs that we have built to give us a faux sense of safety, you know, a faux sense of psychological safety. In often ways that looks like really codependent stylings of relationship. And, you know, the whole construct of marriage is insane. Now that I look at it, you know, talk about attachments. Anybody that's ever gone through a divorce knows how difficult it is to like detach. It's not something you can just simply go, okay, thanks. You know, this has been a fun time. No, it's a legal document that requires you to go through a court proceeding of some nature. Now, granted, mine was minimal because I asked for nothing. Because I didn't want any attachments. I didn't want spousal support. I didn't want anything. I wanted zero things. And luckily, we didn't own anything together. So, except for debt. And I was like, no, I karmically want zero attachments to this situation. And, you know, the very process of divorce, if anybody has been through it, knows how absolutely difficult it is and how many cords need to be cut to be able to just leave. To be free, you know, it debilitates freedom. It is the opposite of loving freely. It is loving in the most conditional, and maybe even in some instances, you know, I question quite honestly how much love is in a lot of marriages where there is so much, you know, disloyalty and disrespect, dishonor, cheating, you know, infidelities. It just, Like, that's how you treat your person? Like, what? Like that, it's everything is like an agreed attachment. Like a marriage contract is like, let's agree upon the fine points of how we will attach and what that will look like, and make binds, like bind you. There's even like in some cultures, they have like binding ceremonies where they bind the two of you together as one. And the very concept of that seems problematic if on a soul level, true love, which I've been searching for my whole life, true love is in actuality open and free to let somebody leave when they no longer resonate in that energy. You know what I mean? Now, that's not saying that I'm talking about like open marriages, because I'm not, because I don't agree with that. And if you do that, that's fine. That's your thing. I'm not judging anybody else for anything that they do. If you're all adults and you're all consenting, then you can do whatever the hell you want. It's none of my business. For me personally, I don't think open marriage is the solution to attachment dysfunction. I think that just is creating more attachment with more individuals, which only complicates things and risks hurting individuals. You know, the risk for hurting individuals is very high in that scenario, as well as the fact it doesn't line up at all with sacred sexuality. And the only sexuality this body will ever have, and even if I have no sexuality again for the rest of my life, so be it, because the only sexuality I can, through my spiritual awakening, agree to is one where there is, you know, it's a closed unit. And if that means somebody wants out and doesn't want to participate anymore, that's fine. There's the door. You're free to leave. We're not going to be married. So, you know, it's not complicated. But I'm not sharing my energy with an assortment of other people. Like, that's just a hard no. I don't go plug my phone into other people's computers. So I'm certainly not plugging my body, my energetics, my soul self into an assortment of people. It dilutes the power of the energy. It is puts you at risk, not only physically for health issues, spiritually. It opens the door to a whole bunch of ick and no thanks. You know, like, I don't want other people's spiritual entities, you know, hopping a ride on and coming home to me. So no. I do very strongly believe in those types of things for a sexual relationship. So the definitions of a relationship are going to have conditions, but that doesn't have anything to do with love. I can still love somebody even though they've just made the decision that they want to go have as much sex as possible. In fact, I had a boyfriend. We went to Japan together. And he was open and honest and said, listen, I want to go sow my wild oats. I'm here in Japan and I want to go have some fun. And I was like, go have as much fun as you want to have, but we're done. Because that's not what I'm about, but I hope you have a good time. So we broke up and I came home to Canada and he stayed in Japan, and I guess he sowed his Japanese oats. I have no idea, but that's on him. He was free to do that. Do I still have love in my heart for him? Yep. There's still a little bit of love in my heart for him. We had some good memories being together in Japan. Not all good memories, but some. I want to move on next to what Jesus says about love without conditions. In the teachings of Jesus Christ, unconditional love is expressed as agape. Love that gives freely, He taught things like love your enemies, do good without expecting repayment, and forgive repeatedly. The spirit of this teaching is love because it is your nature, not because someone deserves it. But this doesn't mean tolerating abuse. Many modern theologians note that Jesus withdrew from harmful situations when necessary. Love remained open, but boundaries still existed. So I want to talk about this a little bit because these teachings are very important. However, there is some nuance in it of how it can be distorted. Okay, so I have talked in previous videos about how, as an empath, my empathy has been weaponized and used against me. Because a lot of covert narcissists use this, vulnerable, it's called a vulnerable narcissist, that, you feel sorry for them. You're like, oh my God, they're down on their luck. They're having such a hard time. I'm going to help them out. So empathy can be used against you, but so too can love. Your capacity to love somebody can be weaponized and used against you, as I discovered in my marriage, as well as forgiveness can be weaponized and used against you. And we need to be aware of that reality, because there's many that use these teachings as a means to guilt you into offering immediate forgiveness. Like, I need to forgive you right away. And that means staying put and tolerating more. And what I've learned, because it's very painful to have your capacity for love and your capacity for forgiveness and your capacity for empathy to be weaponized and used against you. And so that's why the part of the lesson that I hadn't learned, that I have learned now, is the leave. Like, there needs to be leave built into this, because love without physical boundaries of space can put you in harm's way, because you're indoctrinated and told, like, you should just forgive me. Can we just move on? This, that, and the other. You're still harboring ill feeling about this, that, and you get all confused, and you're like, oh, I'm not being kind to this person. I need to love them more. I need to forgive them more. When what you actually need to do is leave. Okay. So I like this because it reminds us that Jesus withdrew from harmful situations when necessary. He didn't just stay there and tolerate it. He left. So in learning to balance love from an unconditional standpoint, it means also unconditionally loving your own body, your own emotions, your own mind, your own spirit, so that you can discern when a situation is unsafe and leave and love from afar. So my love may not be conditional, but my presence is. And nobody ever taught me that lesson, because when you're a child and you are in a toxic dynamic, how do you leave? Where do you leave? Where do you go? At 3, I tried to leave as far as my garage. I couldn't get any further than that. So there was no leave. That was never an option. So the lesson that was leave was debilitated. And further, once there is an attachment in a dysfunctional patterning with all these cords, and those cords can present like guilt and blame and shame and, financial manipulation and obligation. It's Thanksgiving and you have to come. It's like, once there's all these cords attached, it has overwritten our own understanding that I have to leave. Like, leaving is the most loving thing that I can do. It is the most loving thing to do because it accepts the other person exactly as they are. And that can be really dysfunctional and hurtful and cruel. And you still may love them, but you say, I need to leave because I'm accepting you for who you are. I'm no longer caught in a cycle of hoping that you'll change so that I can be happy, you know? And so you cut all these cords and you learn the lesson of leave. And it's one I wish that I had learned 30 years earlier. Because even though I physically left my house when I was 17, 18-ish and moved north, I didn't emotionally leave. I didn't check out. I still participated in the cycles. And I think in retrospect, of course, hindsight's 2020, as they say, you know, had I left at 17, 18 and never looked back, it would have been a lot healthier. It would have been a lot more loving to me because I wouldn't have been abandoning myself, right? But we learn to abandon ourselves when we are dependent on an external attachment, and that blocks spiritual growth, maturity. You know, that blocks our ability. So for the last however many years until my spiritual awakening began, I was an adult woman being run by a very wounded, abandoned inner child. So I want to let's hear what Ram Dass has to say. Ram Dass says, loving everyone but not clinging. So clinging and attachment, similar things. He said, I can love you and still let you go. I wish that was like the rule, as opposed to the rules of, if you go, I won't love you anymore. The love will cease, you know? If you leave, that's it. I'm not loving you anymore. You know, what if we love somebody so much that we were like, I love you so much, I want to see you fly, you know? And so with my own son, I'm like, I love you so much, I want to give you the space without guilt, without obligations, without demands, without anything. I don't want you to ever feel a sense of dread that you need to come and visit me or call me. You know, call me when you want to call me. Does it hurt from a mother's point of view to not hear from my kid all the time? You know, I would love nothing more than to like have text messages every single day. I really would. But I don't think that's natural. And I don't think that's normal for a 25-year-old man to like want to be contacting his mom all the time. But when parents make those demands, you know, and they constantly are turning it around, like, well, what about me? What about me? That's their inner child parentifying the child, saying, you need to take care of my needs, which is completely backwards of what parenting is supposed to be, which is supposed to be, I love you so much that I'm going to give you the resources, the love, the compassion, the care, the understanding to let you fly free and find yourself in the world. And if you need me, I am here. I am here for you. So they're learning within that relationship dynamic to not cling has been challenging, but it's part of my own growth and development. Like I've said from day one, that boy was born a little Buddha, and he's been more my teacher than anyone else on the planet. And I'm constantly learning because I never had modeled to me what healthy parent-child dynamics look like. So I've been just doing basically the opposite of everything that's ever been done to me. You know, I hated the obligated phone calls that I need to make daily to my mother. Like daily. That was insane. Every single day I'd have to call, and it was like offering up my arm for a vampire to have their lunch. And then as soon as something nasty was said, I was like, gotta go. And so I never learned the lesson that I was free. I was never free. There was no freedom. Even living like an ocean away was, and it's strange to me, but not, that both her children didn't live near her. There was no like, but she didn't want that. She didn't want that either. She wanted control without any of the healthy, normal dynamics that a normal relationship would have looked like, because, well, I'm sure her own trauma in her own life caused what it caused. That doesn't mean that. It's just sad. It's just sad. Let's see what else Ram Dass says. He says, love without attachment means, like attachment happens when we try to make another person fill a hole inside of us. And love without attachment means appreciating someone's presence when you have it, letting them be exactly who they are, like their own person. And if that means that they have dysfunction, or maybe they're an alcoholic, or maybe they're a drug addict, or maybe they're, toxic, you can still love the essence of them, but no, it's not safe for you to be around. So letting them be exactly as they are means letting them be dysfunctional. Letting them be in their own dysfunction and letting them figure that out for themselves, and leaving so that you yourself, your own self is. And then it also says allowing them to come and go in the flow of life. How many people do that? How many people have mastered that? I would like to know. Inquiring minds would like to know. Because it's certainly not what the world looks like to me. As I said, the whole concept of marriage is like locking you in for life into a contract, which makes no sense. People grow and change and develop, and perhaps there's times where you need to go and do your own thing, and then you come back, maybe it works again in the future, maybe it doesn't. But like this whole like locking people in place in one town, in one house, in one job, in one marriage, how is that the flow of life? That to me seems like stagnant non-growth. Thich Nhat Hanh says, love that frees, not possesses. Loving kindness, compassion, joy, and freedom. If your love removes somebody's freedom or your own, it's not true love. He wrote something like, you must love in such a way that a person you love feels free. And then he goes on to talk about, ChatGPT talks about the subtle misunderstanding of these teachings is that, I must love everyone and accept nothing in return. But most spiritual teachers would actually say something more balanced, like love is not a transaction, but mutual love is healthy and natural. The key is this. Don't require love in return to justify your love, but also allow yourself to receive love. A fully open heart both gives and receives without gripping either. So that's what I feel like I am currently being challenged to do, is to love fully and freely and receive where I receive, which is Soul Tribe has come in and shown me what healthy love looks like. I am loving these people without attachment. If any one of them should feel the desire to leave, then they can leave. I would hope that they leave in kindness and say goodbye in a kind way, but even that hasn't happened, and that doesn't stop me from loving. Like, I recently, a couple months back, had a friend that had been on this journey with me for 3 years, and it was 1 minute, I just don't think we're resonating together, goodbye, and then I was blocked. And so that was a little harsh, but I still love her. I still love her even though she left. What I'm grieving is not the loss of love. What I'm grieving is the loss of attachment, the loss of presence, the loss of sharing. That's what I'm grieving. And I think in this time right now of in between, we have to grieve. We have to grieve all those that chose to leave, because with each tear and each sigh and each wail and each, it brings us, it forces us, it doesn't bring us, it forces us into a more mature type of love, a type of love that can just say and own it, I love you. I love you, and it's okay. I'm not reliant on you to love me back. I'm not reliant on you to talk to me. I'm not reliant on you to show up. I'm not reliant on you to do anything, because this two-way thing, and I said this about money the other way too, like I love, God provides me with love that I receive, so it's not always a two-way street. It's like I can love and love and love and love and love, and then others show up and they offer me, and I'm like happy to receive. I'm very happy to receive the kindnesses that I have received and the support that I have received. It's come from places I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams. God sent me support on this path from all over the world that it still amazes me. It still amazes me. And some of those have come in and some of those have left. And then others come in and others leave. And I'm like, I just love all of it. I just love all of it. Ultimately, my takeaway is love and leaving are two ends of a spectrum that have to honor each other. When there is leaving, there has to be grieving. And honoring that process is what helps strengthen our heart's capacity to love without attachment. And then ultimately, I think the only attachment is God. Through this process of love and leaving, the one place that I am able to attach is spirit, is higher self, is God, is connecting to realms. And the power of prayer has been like oxygen through this loss cycle. I also really, just before I go, want to say thank you so much for the comments that I've got in the last couple of days, because my a wounded aspect of myself really felt like I was a freak to love like this. And throughout my life, I've thought that there was something like seriously wrong with me because I couldn't understand. I really didn't understand at all what was happening. And so to have other people say that like my stories are actually resonating as their reality as well is been so affirming, that striving to love like Jesus did, or love like Buddha did, or love like Ram Dass did, it isn't disordered or dysfunctional or weird or freakish or crazy. I'm going to just love. And I love every single one of you. And I'm so appreciative, and I happily receive all the love that has been shown towards me on this path. It's been beautiful. Beautiful, because receiving love, in this capacity it forces non-attachment. Somebody just needs to close their computer and we're no longer attached. You know what I mean? It forces attachment. So you can have like amazing loving connections with people, but there's beauty in that. There is incredible beauty in that. And I'm very grateful for it, because I have learned to receive love for the first time in my life over the last few years, opening myself and just letting whatever shows up show up. And it's amazing. You're amazing. You're absolutely amazing. So thank you very, 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 very much for all the comments that you guys leave. Like, just, you have no idea. You have no idea. Peace in.